ahead and call the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors for August 2019 to order. If all members could please silence their cell phones and press their presence button. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Supervisor Lott. If you could please all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the invocation by Supervisor Lott.
We seek your help with our affairs tonight. Bless this meeting with your divine intelligence and help us to make the best use of our own. Amen.
Thank you, Supervisor Lott. Next item on this evening's agenda is an adoption of this evening's agenda. I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the adoption of tonight's amended agenda.
There's a motion and a second to the adopt, and if we, with one clarification in terms of the amendment, it's referring to moving item.
And then I would also like to make a motion to amend tonight's agenda so resolution number 195 is acted on right after resolution 18408 2019.
Okay, so just for clarification, the motion is to move resolution 195 immediately before 184. Any discussion? Excuse me, right after 184. Any discussion in regards to the motion? So that is to move 195 right after 184. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, and that's a time in the agenda in which we allow an opportunity from anyone from the public to speak on any item on this evening's agenda or any item under county jurisdiction. Is there anyone who wishes to speak tonight? I'll say it again. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Please, you can step forward to the mic and give your name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom O'Connor. I'm from Fond du Lac County, and I used to work at the Fond du Lac Medical Examiner's office, and I'm speaking here tonight in regards to your censorship of Barry Busby. I've known Barry for about 20 years. I'm an autopsy supervisor. That's when I first met him. He would bring his cases down. And my opinion is that I've never met a better person, and I know a lot of coroners, deputy coroner, medical examiner, deputy medical examiner. He kind of shines above most of them. Some of them don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do a scene any more than a detective does. But Barry is very caring and everything else, and I've enjoyed having him come down to my office as well as some of his other personnel. And when we get done with an autopsy, he will ask questions. And then he will contact that family. I've heard him on the phone. He's a very caring person. The stuff that's been going on lately, I do question it because I'm a member of the WCMEA. Barry is not. He hasn't been a member for quite some time now. And some of the other things that were in the paper, I have not really discussed it with Barry, because I kind of believe in being neutral. When you're in the medical examiner's or coroner's business, you don't really get involved with everybody else because you have to have your own judgment. I have to look at cases. And Barry's had a little tougher than I had. He's had a couple of babies, and those are the worst ones. We have to go and investigate dead people, whether it's suicide, accident, natural death. I love natural death. But when you get to suicide, homicides, especially babies, I got one that's 14 months old, is a homicide. They haven't even done anything yet. And that's hard for me to deal with. And I know Barry has had some difficult cases where it really affects you like PTSD. I've never had any chance to discuss my problems or my frustrations or my depression with anybody else. They were never giving it to me. And I know that he's getting some. He's kind of lucky. And if it turns worse, I'm going to be sorry that this has happened. I think there should be a little more thought put into it, and I think the county board should really look into it, make your own judgment. Don't go by the influence of if somebody else has got a grudge against him, because that sometimes will steer you the wrong way. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening?
Over the last few months, quite a bit has been written and said about the coroner's office and me personally. During that same period of time, other than a request for my resignation and being called a liar, no one from the county has approached me and asked me about any of the accusations that have been made. Regarding the allegation of sexual harassment, I do not recall the comment, but I did apologize to an individual the next morning with no further action. In response to the matter of my family members receiving benefit from my position, that has no merit. My sons obtained a job on their own, and my office has never had any influence on the company's operations, and I am proud to have led the state in advancing tissue organ donations both before and after their employment. I take great pride in the level of service and the reputation of the coroner's office has had with the Winnebago County citizens. We serve. I'm also proud of the programs that we have been initiated during my tenure as coroner, some of which include suicide prevention, child death review, suicide death review, overdose death review, the heroin task force, helping to start Rethink Coalition, and serving on other committees and boards. I was a member of the Lions Eye Bank for 10 years. During the last 22 years, I have dealt with every imaginable cause and manner of death: natural, homicide, suicide, accidents, undetermined causes, and personally attended more than 1,000 autopsies and administered to many thousands of grieving families. All of this has emotional impact, lasting impact on me. After the death of several infants in the last year, over the last 4, and several before that, a 9-month-old that was beaten to death, a 2-year-old that was showering by himself, plugged the tub, and his 8-month-old brother drowned while the mother was on her computer, a 14-month-old burned to death while the caretaker was intoxicated, a 3-year-old beautiful little girl found dead. And upon looking at her, she could have been my granddaughter's twin. I've got pictures of what makes PTSD real. And each and every one of you, 37 or whatever, can come to my office and look at them. And they'll be available to show you, and you won't be the same after. These became a life-changing event for me. I was working hard on the healing as I've dealt with trauma and emotion events for over 51 years of my career. I've healed myself every time afterwards. I sought advice from 2 pathologists, the primary physician of mine, and advised the personnel director early on in my medical condition and treatment to help me eliminate and cope with ongoing sleepless nights, vivid nightmares, flashbacks, and other medical issues. Suggestions were from the first people: you probably need some time off, and or maybe retirement. I have worked on the healing process. In March, I had another child death of a very, very personal, close friend. The grandfather and the grandfather were some best friends. And I took that baby down for autopsy on March 5th. At that time, I knew I was getting close to retirement. During the same period of time, Due to reoccurring irregularity with the chief deputy and his performance issues, I demoted him from chief deputy to deputy in the presence of our human resource director. After 2 days, we accepted the deputy's voluntarily unrequested resignation. Right after the resignation is when all this, I won't say, started. I had a back injury on the job 4 months ago, and just finishing up getting able to do things normally again. Working in the coroner's office has continued at the highest standard without incidents or complaints in spite of the recent unfounded accusation and intense scrutiny. I am pleased to say that I have the best administrative assistant, 2 phenomenal deputies, and 1 new part-time deputy. I've also been blessed with many excellent deputies in the past that have done a phenomenal job for me. I have come in under budget the last 2 years, and this year I am again on track to be under budget again. I want to emphasize that PTSD is real. I think a lot of people have seen that in the past. And I'd like to make sure that all police officers, firefighters, first responders, medical personnel, military personnel, funeral directors seek professional help if they are experiencing emotional difficulties. A year ago, after being reelected, my intention was to serve 1 more complete term. But now I need to worry about my health. I just buried my 102-year-old mother a week ago, and have decided, after serving the fine people of Winnebago County for the last 51 years, I plan to retire on what would have been her 103rd birthday, October 31st, 2019, in honor and respect for her. Thank you, and God bless the citizens of Winnebago County.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening on any item on this agenda or any item under county jurisdiction? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Please give your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Rowe. I reside at 1555 Lion Drive in Neenah. As you know, I served in this board for a number of years, and in fact, a year and a half ago, when I decided not to run again, I was serving as vice chairman. I appreciate all the time that I had, and during those years I was here, I was also fortunate to be on the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. We heard a lot of comments from the 2 speakers before me. I didn't hear a lot of denials about what the accusations had been and how he would answer them, he being Barry Busby. I can tell you from the 12 years I was around the county and on the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee, getting a budget or managerial information from Barry was next to impossible. It was very, very difficult working with him. I thought just yesterday about a sales manager that worked for me. I was in business for 52 years. This gentleman's name was Gil Clappin, not that that means anything. But Gil was the type of person, I would ask him a question, and 20 minutes later, he'd look at me and say, "So what do you think, Bill?" I said, "Gil, I don't remember what the hell the question was." That's the same type of response we would get from Barry at the Judiciary Committee meetings. I'd like to say if half of the accusations against Barry are true, it should be a unanimous vote tonight. Forget that. If any 1 or 2 of the accusations are true, And I don't know how many of you went to the closed session. Obviously, I couldn't go. I don't know how many of you went, but I would hope that there was information there that would lead you to the same conclusion that I have, is that this resolution should be passed by this board. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'll say one last time, is there anyone else who wishes to speak this evening? Then we'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is correspondence. I'll call on Clerk Ertmer.
You have a few pieces of correspondence tonight. The first one is a petition from April A. Becker in the town of Winnebago requesting a zoning change from I-2 to R2 for a single-family dwelling. That's referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee. Notice of claim from Eric Torbeck while he was, for personal injury while he was an inmate in the county jail. That's referred to Personnel and Finance. Another notice of claim from We Energies for damage to some of their electrical equipment out on Highway 10 caused by a highway department vehicle. That's referred to Personnel and Finance. Resolution from Door County requesting the Wisconsin legislature to end the use of personal conviction waivers for school and daycare center immunizations. This will be referred to the Legislative Committee. And then there's a resolution from Burnett County. They are supporting the Medicaid expansion as proposed in Governor Evers' budget, and this is also referred to the Legislative Committee. And that's all.
Thank you, Clerk Ertmer. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, and that's reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Any reports from any supervisor? I'll call on Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. First of all, the second annual or the second wheelchair wash for the ARC will be on Saturday, September 28th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Manassas Senior Center. If you know people who can get their wheelchair washed or you want to volunteer, please let me or Beth Roberts know. And the last one was very well attended. No, we had a very good one, and we had some very good celebrities, or well, what we call, we had Miss Oshkosh came, we had a couple from the Glow players, and we had a number of my fellow colleagues, supervisors, Gordon and Lowenschlager, Sinkstock, and Powers, and Buck were there to help us out. So if you know people who need a wheelchair wash or want to volunteer, let me or Beth Roberts know. The next thing I want to announce is a couple weeks ago, I have been interested in the issue of diversity, and I had a program which was attended by the Chairman Ramos, Supervisors Binder, and Supervisor Gordon. And one of the speakers I had come was a Yi Ling Zhang, who is a school board member, a village trustee, and a county board supervisor from Marathon County. And in fact, they have a diversity affairs committee. Obviously, you tell me his name, he's Hmong. And he took the opportunity then, and he wrote to me today that when the Hmong National Labor Day Festival is held at Winnebago County Park, Labor Day weekend, Saturday, August 31st, September 1st, that he will be there at 9:30 a.m. at opening ceremonies, and he invited me, Chairman Ramos, and Steve Binder, and anyone else who would want to join him, to be there at the opening ceremonies, and then introduce them around to the people at the festival, so we get used to them, they get used to us. So that's my other thing I want to announce, is the Hmong National Labor Day Festival, which is held every year. The opening ceremony is 9:30 a.m. on Saturday, August 31st. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Next speaker is Vice Chairman Egan, followed by Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislative Committee is Monday at 8:30 a.m. at the James B. Coughlin Building. We do have quite a few things on there, but we've opened up the meeting now so that we can also discuss with the legislators somewhat afterwards. So we can go a little bit beyond our agenda, not a lot. We got to stay within. But so the legislators are there. If you're not on the committee, you're still more than welcome to come and stick around. Most of the legislators will stick around afterwards, if nothing else. For those of you that are on the committee, your packets are on your desk. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Egan. Next speaker, Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Patty Francor, on behalf of the IS Committee, will be holding, I want to say like a presentation / educational training at our September 3rd special orders meeting on iPad usage, how to get the voting software on the iPad, and answer any other questions that you may have. It's kind of an opportunity for any issues you might be having to be resolved, but more in a formal setting. So I just wanted to let you know. So if you want to bring your iPads, I encourage you bringing your iPads to that meeting, so you can have any issues you might have resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. That's the approval of the proceedings from July 16, 2019 meeting. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion in regards to the minutes from the July 16th meeting? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the next item, and that's County Executive's report, followed by County Executive appointments. I'll call on Executive Harris.
There's a lot of items on tonight's agenda that are worthy of discussion, but I'm going to focus on just one because I think it's the controversial item that you face tonight. I think Coroner Barry Busby is making the right decision to retire as of October 31st, 2019, and that could bring this situation to an end. However, I must point out that that is not official or irrevocable until he's submitted it in writing to the sheriff. And at any point prior to that, he could change his mind. There are a few things that the coroner commented on that also need to be addressed. For sure, dealing with deaths, and especially child deaths, would be hard on anybody. And we shouldn't minimize how tough this job is over the long term. But you might have gotten some misperceptions from his comments. Mr. Busby has not been going on death calls for a very long time. And in fact, these child deaths were not calls that he went on. They were calls that his deputies had to go on because he did not do so. And in fact, since he's been out of state nearly as much time as he has been in state since his last election, he's not going to be going on these calls, and in fact has not covered most of the autopsies this year. But again, in fairness to him, he did go to the autopsies for these children, but not on the death calls. He did not respond to the call. I would urge the board to go ahead and go forward with the resolution. There's nothing in the resolution that we can't prove. We know from the phone records how much he was absent. We know from the Wisconsin Coroners and Medical Examiners Association he's barred from attendance at their events because of his past behaviors. But Barry did have a long and productive career with Winnebago County, and I think if he retires as of October 31st, 2019, that would bring it to an appropriate end. And that'll be my only comments on the agenda tonight. I have a great number of appointments to the Aging and Disability Resource Center Committee. I'm appointing or reappointing Michael Norton, Susan Locke, and Peter Christensen.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointments to the Aging and Disability Resource Center. Any discussion? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I have two reappointments to the Board of Adjustment, and those are Greg Cargus and Arden Schroeder.
Is there a motion? Second. Motion and a second to approve the appointments to the Board of Adjustment. Any discussion? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I have a reappointment to the East Wisconsin Counties Railroad Consortium, and that is Larry Smith.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to East Wisconsin Counties Railroad Consortium. Any discussion? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I have a number of appointments and reappointments to the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board. It's Hannah Westfall, Russ Hayes, Robert Peterson, Jennifer Marks, and Larry Lautenschlager.
There's a motion and a second to approve all appointments to the Fox Valley Workforce Development Board. Any discussion? Then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I have an appointment to the Veterans Service Commission to replace Joe Mall, who has resigned from that commission, and this is for a term expiring December 31st, 2019, and that is Lucy Burr.
There's a motion and a second to approve the appointment to the Veterans Service Commission. Any discussion? Then all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Harris. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, and that's County Board Chairman's Report. First, wanted to let you know that Supervisor Robel is excused for this evening. I did want to let you know that I know Clerk Ertmer has visited with him. I've spoken with him on the phone just very recently and do plan to visit him. He actually is in good spirits. He does admit that he gets tired at the end of the day, but otherwise in very good spirits, and I look forward to visiting him in the near future. So now I did want to let you know that he is making his presence known here this evening because he purchased a cake for you all to enjoy this evening. It's already sliced and in the back room. The plan would be throughout the meeting, you can feel free and go back there. If we can, we'll certainly see if we can find a time to take a break, but you should also feel free if you'd like at any time to stop as well. But once again, he wanted to make sure that he let you all know how much he appreciates you. That was part of it. He did put a card back there as well for anyone if they want to sign or make any comment to him as well. So I certainly... 92nd birthday, thank you. It's his 92nd birthday. So I encourage you all to do that. And as Supervisor Wojciechowski had mentioned, so just so everyone's clear, because we haven't had one over the summer, we will have a special orders meeting on Tuesday, September 3rd. As he mentioned, if you can bring your iPads, because our IS director will be talking about how you can vote with the iPad. I know we've made some references before, but she'll be going over that in a little more detail at that time. And that concludes my report. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the UW-Oshkosh Fox Cities Campus Capital Projects Report in regards to roof repairs to the main building, in addition to the Child Care Center and South Parking Lot reconstruction. Joanne Reif here is from the UW-Oshkosh to fill us in, please.
Good evening. I'm here to give you the information. The packet you should have received tonight is this packet overall, so if everyone can pull that out. Tonight we will start the conversation with Martin Rudd, and he can start, and I will finish this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to be back here again. You might have seen me before in various roles here. I was formerly the campus dean at the UW Fox Valley campus from 2012 to 2015, and then the regional dean of the UW Fox Valley, UW Fond du Lac, and UW Manitowoc campuses from 2016 through to the beginning of the UW system restructuring that brought together the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley, and the University of Wisconsin-Fond du Lac campuses, starting with the announcement by President Ray Cross and the approval by the Board of Regents in November of 2017. I'm not here to provide a detailed update tonight on that restructuring. I can tell you it's been going well. We are about to enter our first full academic year together, having been through the transition. We spent about 9 months planning the transition. Last academic year, working through the transition, and this year, this upcoming academic year, which starts on the 3rd of September, will be our first full year in our sort of post-transition mode. It is by no means a completed project in the way that we have brought our campuses together, but the project has been going very well. You may have heard Chancellor Levitt talk about the way in which we've had 39 different working groups coming together, made up of faculty and staff, to bring together how we integrate personnel, management, academics, athletics, human resources, information technology, culture and identity, marketing and communications, a whole array of complex university activities into a single operation. One of the great pleasures of this restructuring is that I have got to work with new colleagues who have brought a level of expertise to the roles that I used to play as a generalist in helping me manage the affairs at UW Fox Valley and UW Fond du Lac. On the 11th of July 2019, the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin system approved a name change for the campus formerly known as UW Fox Valley. It became known as the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus. We are the same place. We are the same people. We are now integrated under a University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh umbrella, but we still come to you for the support and the guidance that is provided at our local level by an excellent board of trustees, represented here by Representative Brunn and by Tom Snyder, and and there as well. The Board of Trustees provides guidance on the projects and the direction for the campus, and together with our partners from Winnebago County, we build on using their expertise to help us guide the direction of the campus. We also do that internally, of course, by the programming that we do, the array of academic offerings that we provide, and of course the community engagement in which we thrive. And the first couple of pages of the report highlight some of the accomplishments that we have, that we had in 2019. You can read there some of the successes that we have that are related around academics, programs that you have supported in the past, such as the UW-Platteville Fox Valley Engineering Collaboration, a collaboration that to date has produced more than 150 graduates, baccalaureate graduates, in mechanical and electrical engineering who are now working, 90% of them of whom work in the Fox Cities and Oshkosh as engineers. They have elevated their position in their companies, they have elevated their own personal economic status, and they've elevated their own careers through coming to the Fox Cities campus to complete baccalaureate degrees in engineering. We continue to see great success with the Barlow Planetarium and the Weiser Science Museum, two jewels that a campus like ours has that bring in tens of thousands of community members and school children to the campus each year. So those are some of the activities that we're able to do on our campus because of the support that we continue to enjoy from you for the facilities that you co-own and co-build with Outagamie County. We are working on a new mission statement for our new university that we hope to present to the Board of Regents during the fall semester. If you look on the third page, you will see some 2020 objectives. And of course, with the upcoming academic year, the 1920 academic year, we hope to get going on some of those. You can see that the second one there was to deepen the academic and non-academic alignment as a campus of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. That's clearly an ongoing process. This year, we will offer a single curriculum using a single calendar across all three campuses of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. That's a big deal for the faculty and teaching staff. That's the first time that we have this sort of alignment. The faculty at the Fox Cities campus and the Fond du Lac campus are now aligned and members of the academic departments of UW-Oshkosh. We're a single department across three campuses in the same way that we're integrating our administration. I serve as the Assistant Chancellor for the Access campuses, so my primary responsibility is to oversee the Fox Cities and the Fond du Lac campuses on behalf of the Chancellor, Chancellor Andrew Levitt. And I do that on a daily basis, interacting with, as I said, the new colleagues that I have. One of those is here today. That's Joanne Rife. She's the Director of Facilities Planning and Construction for our university, and she brings that level of expertise that I hope you will listen to tonight as we explain to you about some of the construction projects, the capital projects that we have in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. All right, so if you turn to page 4 in the document overall, it's listed as the Fox Cities Campus Capital Improvement Project for the roof repairs to the building. What you're looking at in the first page is actually just an overall view of the entire Fox Cities campus. If you start the next pages then, what you're looking at is we had a study that was done by Jamar, who took an evaluation of all of the roofs on the various buildings of the campus. So this is overall their evaluation of the facility and the roofs on those facilities. The next couple of pages that you see here are the spreadsheets and a summary of about a 180-page document overall about the sizes of the roofs, what their emergency costs would be for repair, remedial repair costs, and if we had to do a full replacement of that roof section, what would the cost of that be? So you've got 2 pages of that documentation overall to give you an idea of what we're looking at with this project. So this project overall is looking to just do the remedial work on the facilities. The emergency repair work was completed in 2018. We have done some of the remedial work with funds that are operational funds from the operational budget for the campus. So the overall cost that we're looking to do the remediation work, meaning that we will not end up having to do major roof replacements in the very near future, would mean that the cost is about a $50,000 cost. That split between the 2 counties comes up to a cost of $25,000 for Winnebago County. So that's the first project that I wanted to let you know about. Okay. The second project that we have there, continuing on the documentation, is the addition to the Children's Center. The Children's Center overall, again, if you look at the maps, you've got the overall campus map. The second part of that is a closer view of where the facility is located and where we're looking to add the addition to the building overall. So the addition of the building would actually be going to the north portion of where this red roof is, and that section would allow us to be able to expand the building there. This project was done as a preliminary design and concept through SEH Incorporated, who is an architectural engineering firm in the Menasha area, and they put the overall cost to the project. The cost for this project overall is $534,600. So split between the 2 counties, we're going to be asking in a next meeting that we will attend, we will ask for $267,300 from the county budget overall. This facility is adding an addition because we currently have a space where the children in the winter weather that we have to go outside in conditions that are not appropriate for them. There are 48 children that actually attend this facility, and we really need to be able to have a space where they can have larger motor exercise that is not in winter conditions. So that's part of what's here. The other part of that is this facility overall currently has meetings for teachers and parents when they're coming in, as well as big staff meetings that are happening in one staff office that is currently the workroom, the office, the supply storage closet. It's got a little bit of mix of everything in it. So these areas overall, having that addition will really assist us with what we need to have for the expansion of the facility. The last part of what you see on the page here is actually the preliminary concept design that was developed by SEH, and it shows where the addition is, as well as some three-dimensional images of how that could potentially look to the facility. All right, moving on to, and then there's a couple of pages here of just basic information overall. If you get time to take a read through this, I think this will help answer several more questions that you might have about the facility and how we operate that. All right, and then on to our third project of the evening to discuss here quickly is the project that we are currently looking to do, which is going to be a redo of the south parking lot. So again, campus map, a little bit of a blow up on that is the next page. Location of where that is on the campus overall is, this is the parking lot that we're talking about right here in this lower left corner of the plan. Okay, so that, we did have a study done of all of the parking lots on the campus as we were evaluating the facility overall. And the passer rating for that is that it doesn't actually have a passer rating because it's in such bad shape, if you will. It's been patched and patched and patched by Winnebago County Highway Department. And they have continued to patch that for us, but it is now at the point where it does need to be repaired, ground replaced. This project is something that we would look to do. Now, I do need to let you know that Outagamie County has not yet included this in their 2019 budget. They will be including it in their 2020 budget. So that project will be moving that, they will be moving that forward, hopefully with a positive vote for that project. And that the work would be done by Winnebago County Highway Department, and they would look to include it in their 2020 budget as well. That's the information that I had for you tonight. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up for questions. I see several call-ins. We'll start with Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm noticing on the grade key, areas A, C, B, D, and F, but in the summary, there is no F, but there's an E. Is E and F supposed to be the same thing?
Yes, my mistyping.
Okay.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker, Supervisor Finch, followed by Supervisor Gabbard.
Thank you. The price you gave us, is it an accurate price or an estimate?
They are estimated prices overall. We won't get out an actual price until the project would go to bid.
Okay.
But we do have very confidence in the numbers overall. Between our experience and the experience of the Winnebago County Highway Department, as well as the architectural and engineering teams that we've been working with, we're very confident in the numbers.
The reason I ask is if the prices do come in a little bit less, but we've already authorized X dollars, would you be coming back to get something else done? Or wait another 8 years, 5 years to come back? I'd rather have you do it all at once than to come back and piecemeal it. And that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, generally, we scope out the projects for all of the work that needs to be done in those projects overall. So if they would come in under bid, then that money would come back to the county.
All right, so you don't need anything else done then?
Sorry, what was that question?
You won't need anything else done then as far as maintenance work then?
Maintenance work on the parking lots?
Yes, sir.
There's all long-term, there's going to be maintenance work that needs to be done, but when we're talking about a grind and redo for that one particular section of the parking lot, that's the one that needs to be redone. The other maintenance work that would need to be done is not going to come in at that kind of cost overall. It would be typical of your seal coats, striping, that kind of work that would need to be done.
I was just going to address the question about additional funding. The most recent example that we have of that is when in 2010 you authorized the purchase of the former tool and die shop that we turned into the UW Platteville Fox Valley Collaborative Engineering Facility. That came in under budget, and we returned the additional funds back to the
No, that's fine. The
general
reason I
account.
asked the other question was that sometimes people will come in to get something done just to skim through it. All right? But if there's money left over, but you also needed other stuff done, I, for one, would be voting for it. But I don't want to put something in your mind. But, you know, if you don't come in that often in the first place, and I would just like to make sure things get done right. Because the people you're teaching are the people who's going to be running this country sometime in your future. In fact, she could even be our attorney sitting up over there.
Could be.
Thank you, Supervisor Finch. Next speaker, Supervisor Gabbard, followed by Supervisor Lautenschlager.
I have a question for you, Joanne, on the daycare, and this is just my question to you. Since the campuses have consolidated, which I'm well aware of that. Can UWO students bring their children to your daycare on your campus if there is room?
Yeah, I'm going to let Martin answer.
The answer is the facility is not specifically for students. Several years ago, probably ending about 6 years ago, the students of then UW Fox Valley voted to end the segregated fee support that they provided for their own students that provided a break in the daycare prices. So the facility is open for everyone. It is still open for members of the public, for students of faculty and staff, students of kids of students. So that means all our students. Yeah. We have some, as I put in the narrative, we have some UW Oshkosh campus interns working there, students who are working towards early childhood education majors. It's possible that they may have children who would want to attend there. At the moment, for this coming academic year, we do not have many Oshkosh campus classes being held on the Fox Cities campus. As we grow our baccalaureate programs, as we look to have an MBA program in the Fox Cities campus, as we look to have other baccalaureate programs, that may bring more Oshkosh campus students to the Fox Cities campus, or, as we hope, it will increase the number of Fox City students who are attending the campus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbard. Next speaker, Supervisor Lautenschläger, followed by Supervisor Albrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the child care, and I understand you need some adequate area for play in frigid weathers or whatever. But one of the facilities and property meeting that I attended that you guys gave a presentation that really struck me was the emergency evacuation for these kids. Can you explain why we need an add-on for emergency evacuation for these children?
Currently, if you look at the map overall, the children actually go from the plan that they have right now has the children actually going from the building that they're currently in, across the driveway, across the parking lot, into the academic main building, down a hallway, and into the basement. So the length of time that it actually takes them to get across there is of concern for us. And so the addition and the way that we actually construct the addition will allow us to create a safe space for the children to shelter in place.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Supervisor Lautenschläger. Next speaker, Supervisor Albrecht, followed by Supervisor Defferting.
My question is, was Winnebago County's facilities director involved with your roof repairs?
The overall maintenance of the facility is always reviewed.
Was he involved at all with the procedure you went through for roof repairs, seeing we're involved with the maintenance?
The conversation is always with the different county directors about the work that we're doing in the facilities. So it's always a joint conversation of the work we're doing. It was the recommendation that we go ahead and hire out the work for the repairs that were being done.
Thank you, Supervisor Albrecht. Next speaker, Supervisor Defferting, followed by Supervisor Shorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question in regards to the parking lot. This is just something that I was wondering about. You know, being on the Planning and Zoning Committee, obviously runoff is always an important subject matter for us. And it's something that I've want to see the rest of the county explore as well. And of course, I'm looking for, you know, better ways that we could serve our environment. And I was wondering if, in regards to the parking lot, if you explored an option of using a permeable surface rather than an impermeable surface. Like, for instance, using gravel, using a grid to hold in the gravel as a way to recharge the water, the rainwater. Is this something that you've looked into?
For this particular project, we have not looked into that overall because we're working with the highway department to do the work. We have used and looked at that as various options to do parking lots across the Oshkosh campus itself. We've also looked at pavement overall that is or permeable, that allows all of the water to actually filter through that into the ground and the system that's in place. So there's multiple ways of doing that, but I don't know if at this time the highway department has the capability of putting that material down.
Okay, so this might be something that a question that we can volley to the highway department then.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Defferting. Next speaker, Supervisor Shorsey, followed by Supervisor Warnke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to check my math. So the total that you would be requesting of Winnebago County would be a total of $459,300?
I'll
That
have to
sound
do the
right?
math.
So it's so $500,000? That sounds, anyway, but it
Yeah, that sounds about right.
sounds about right? Okay.
50,237,160.
Yeah, so from our perspective, that'll be a big budget discussion, I'm sure. And just, Mr. Chairman, as we prepare for this, for some of us who are newer to the county board, it would be nice to have some presentation perhaps in special session to talk about the relationship with the system, the education system, and how it works and what are the expectations of the county. That would be very helpful. And then just a question, do you know, I remember when I was working with the town of Algoma we broke down the tax dollar and where the tax dollar went, and I know that the tech system was a pretty big slice of the pie. Do you know what percentage you're getting from property taxes?
We do not get any.
You don't get any?
No.
Okay.
No, that goes to the technical college system and to the K through 12 system.
Okay, so not to the, okay, all right. All righty, and I think that's it then. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Next speaker, Supervisor Warnke.
You mentioned something about Outagamie County, they're not on board. Are they going to continue to be our partner?
What I mentioned was Outagamie County has not yet put in the parking lot redevelopment as part of their budget for 2019.
But
They are going to add it into their 2020.
Is that correct? Nothing is going to change with our partnership with them?
Nothing is planned to change with the partnership, correct.
One other thing is, why do you not pursue Calumet County to get them involved in this? They have a lot of students that go to this school.
So this topic comes up from time to time with the trustees. I know Supervisor Binder has raised this as well. The original agreement between the Board of Regents and in this case, Outagamie and Winnebago County only had 2 students. I think you might be surprised at the relatively small number of students who come to the Fox Cities campus who do not reside in Outagamie or Winnebago counties. Those total number of students make up in the high 80s to around 90% of the students. The remaining students come from mainly Calumet, Brown, and Wapaka counties, and they make up less than 10%. There are many scenarios as to how this particular relationship would go. At the moment, the relationship is between 2 counties who evenly split the cost of the operations and the capital projects between the 2 counties. Calumet County is a county that has not been approached. It's a county with whom we have a relationship through the school districts. Certainly our campus recruits in Calumet County, as does the Oshkosh campus. But I think you'd be surprised at the relatively small numbers of students that are there. And again, I just want to point out Supervisors Brun and Binder and Snyder, who can help facilitate information that you may want. And if you would like the exact numbers of students from the last few academic years who have come from Calumet County, as information for you. We'd be happy to get that to you.
I would like to see that, and I would like the whole board to get a copy of that. But the whole point is this, that we're not gonna do this alone in Winnebago County, is that correct? And Outagamie County is gonna continue to be our partner?
Absolutely. We get invited in the same way to present our exact budget, the exact same half of the budget needs on the same day that we had an opportunity to meet with County Executive Harris. We were there with County Executive Nelson. The relationship remains strong and fruitful and productive with both of our county partners. It has been since 1959, and it will be for the next 50, 7,500 years, however long you would like this relationship to be. You've built great facilities with great value to thousands of students. More than 40,000 students have passed through the doors of the UW Oshkosh Fox Cities campus. Those are graduates of which you should be proud because you've helped educate them.
Well, that's very reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Warnke. Next speaker, Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Binder.
Thank you. The University Children's Center now only accepts children whose parents are faculty or staff, or with this arrangement we have with Forge Service. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
The children that are in your center are either parents, are either faculty, or faculty, staff, students, or of the university, or a partnership with Forge Services. That's the only ones who.
No, that is not correct.
Okay.
The majority are looking for an exceptionally high quality daycare and a learning center, and they are members of the public. I would say that the minority are faculty and student kids.
And how long does the center operate? I mean, ask that. And I'm asking this question specifically because, as you know, and maybe people know, there's a big need in this area for second shift, actually maybe even third shift childcare, but at least second shift. And have you thought about, I'll let you answer the question, and then my comment would be, have you thought about extending it to 10-11? I'll let you answer the question.
Yep, those are actually valid questions. So we've actually taken a look at the environment around us as well. Obviously, we're in a pretty urban environment, and there are some second shift and third shift daycares that are around us. That doesn't mean to say we can't do it, but what sets us apart is the level of education that the teachers there have. There are some minimum qualifications that daycare and educational centers are required to have. All of these teachers have been through college and have bachelor's and in some cases master's degrees. And so what we do is to offer a 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. environment for those children. There's a developed curriculum that meets the Youngstar 5-star standard rating. So while we probably could develop that sort of program, that's a large expansion. I don't know if the Head Start program on the Oshkosh campus is open more than sort of traditional first shift hours either.
Yeah, the Head Start program, the federal program that is through the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh campus overall, serves 7 counties overall, and that program operates for the 9-month period, so it actually operates during the academic school year for K through 12. So they don't operate in summer, and they've expanded their program now where they can actually offer, instead of just a morning or an afternoon, they actually offer a 6-hour program that is of the same kind of quality education for 3K, 4K.
One of the things I would point out, if I may, you're sort of really talking about a different programming style. One of the things that we've done with the director there is to tap into a statewide program that allows parents who have been unemployed and are either out looking for work or are doing career and job coaching to drop their children off on an hour-by-hour basis through a state-run program through the Department of Workforce Rehabilitation. And that program allows parents to drop their children off for 2 or 3 hours while they attend, for instance, a job interview or resume building class and things like that. And that's a rather unique program because, you know, we serve it in very much a traditional daycare type of environment. As you can imagine, you know, having sort of hourly drop-ins can change the curriculum, but it's been a very useful addition to the program. So we are looking at programming changes, but I'm not sure that the scale of having a sort of second shift is needed in our area for us to offer.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Next speaker, Supervisor Binder, followed by Supervisor Rasmussen.
I believe Outagamie County will be funding the parking lot. What it came down to is they wanted a student fee to maintain the parking lots, and Supervisor Schneider and I weren't willing to give into that. So that's why it basically didn't go forward in their last budget. We did pass a student fee of basically $50 a semester. It'll generate $140,000 a year. So this will actually be the last parking lot that either county will ever have to fund again, because the next one should last at least 10 years and we'll have $1,400,000 in that fund. So we'd actually be able to upgrade the parking lot lighting and basically do some major parking lot at the students' expense. And as far as percentages of students, there's 49% of the students come from Outagamie, 28% come from us, and 23% come from surrounding counties was the last figure I got. That could change in enrollment this fall, but that was the last figures that we had.
Thank you, Supervisor Binder, and thank you for that information. Next speaker, Supervisor Rasmussen, followed by Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the parking lot, you've got in here reconstruction or pulverization. First of all, that's quite a wide scope of possibility there, considering there's one number for that. My background is I used to be the operations superintendent for the highway department, so I kind of know this stuff. The question that I have is, as compared to, say, the city of Oshkosh, if you do reconstruction of these kind of things in parking lots, you now have to include water retention, islands, lighting, all those things. Does Menasha have these requirements?
Menasha does not
Does
currently
not.
have those requirements.
Okay, so you've checked into that. And again, with the reconstruction or pulverization, that's pretty wide scope there, so maybe when you come in to committee with this, you probably need to have better information, or, you know, more
Right.
precise information on that. I would
Right,
hope.
this has been an ongoing conversation that we've been having with the highway department.
Okay. And then as far as the PACER ratings, that would be a 1 then if it's the worst condition. It's not that it doesn't
wasn't
have a
lis-
number. It will have
Yeah.
a number 1 through 10. 1 is worse, so
Thank you.
just information. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Next speaker, Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have any questions, just a few comments. Just wanted to thank you for this report. And, you know, as someone who represents UW Oshkosh and is still a student, I want to just echo the importance, you know, of what we're doing and how our relationship with UW Fox Cities. Sorry, I want to get it right. I'm still used to the other name. But just the incredible value that campuses bring to their surrounding communities, and like you said, the public utilizes the child facilities, and I'm sure they utilize a lot of the other resources. So I think, you know, being at UW Oshkosh, when a big project wants to be done, it has to go through the state and be approved by them, and that can be a really slow process. So being able to help campuses from our side and supporting them, I think, is very important, and I'm glad that we're doing it. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll close this portion of the agenda. Thank you both very much for attending in your presentation this evening. Thank you very much. So moving on to the next area of the agenda in regards to zoning reports and ordinances. The first one is report number 001, Craig A. Norland, Town of Winnebago. I'll call on Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the adoption of report number 1.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 1. Any discussion?
Yeah, if I just might.
Please.
This property is in Butamore, and this entire area is on our future land use map as residential. It is in the area of the Augustin Greeno Hotel and Tilly's too in that area, so why some former planning commission said it was commercial, I'm not sure, but it's better off where it is.
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to amendatory ordinance number 080119, rezoning from B2 community business to R2 suburban low-density residential for tax parcel number 030-0625. I'll once again call upon Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the adoption of amendatory ordinance number 080119.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 080119. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to report number 002, Timothy Leonard and Victoria Murrell, Town of Amro. I'll call on Vice Chairman Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of report number 002.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 002. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to amendatory ordinance number 080219, rezoning from R1 rural residential A2 general agriculture to A2 general agriculture for parcel number 016-0032-01. I'll once again call on Vice Chairman Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of a mandatory ordinance number 080219.
Motion and a second to approve a mandatory ordinance number 080219. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next item, and that is report number 003, Town of Oshkosh. I will call on Supervisor Gabbard. And that's a motion to approve report number 003. There was a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call on Supervisor Gordon.
I'm just curious. It seems that half of the towns are against this and half are for. I noticed in the ordinance that any properties may be considered exempt from permit requirements, and why we are expanding the amount of land that we are willing to let become.
I'll call on Vice
surfaces?
Chairman Egan to answer your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those that are against it are mainly ones that don't have any effect on it. That's why they didn't send in. So they're not really against it whatsoever. It's just they didn't send in because of that. It's a no response thing.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Egan, and thank you, Supervisor Gordon. Next speaker, Supervisor Rasmussen, followed by Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As town chairman of Town of Algoma, we voted no on this, and I don't know, Tom, if that information got to you based on what you just said, but it should have. And the reason our town is against this is because towns like ours that have a lot of water problems, we don't feel that to expand the areas for water retention and things like that is in our best interest at all. And those are probably why the other towns voted against it. So I'll be voting against this also.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Next speaker, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Yes, I'm on the Town of Neenah Plan Commission, and we took no action because we didn't have all this information when it came to us. And then the town board did the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Next speaker is Supervisor Gabbard.
I should clarify a couple of things. It's not half the towns were for it and half the towns were against it. There were 4 that were against it, 4 that were for it, and the rest did not have a response to us. We had 2 public hearings on this issue. It was postponed at one time, so we had a second public hearing. Not too many towns showed up. We are sponsoring this because we feel that this is a qualified change to the text amendment. And if you would look at the item where the first page of our scenario is listed, there are findings that we put together, and actually I put them together. and I guess you can all read them. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary. We're not allowing more water drainage. We're just asking for a change, and the city of Oshkosh currently has 20,000 square feet. We're asking for the text to be amended to 15,000 square feet, which is still less restrictive than more restrictive than what the city has. So we're not out to do anything that's out of the ordinary here. We did apply for this because we feel that there are some places, and not just in our town, but in others, that people would be allowed to put up a certain size building with disturbed area for parking lot. This 15,000 is not just for the building, it's for the whole area, parking lot, and everything that you disturb. The towns, as many of you do know, do follow the DNR MS4 restrictions for drainage, and we don't see any problem with any of this, so we sponsored it, and like I said, we had 2 public hearings, and the vote was 3-2. Sometimes we aren't all in agreement, but we did pass it 3-2, so I hope that you would look at that and pass this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbard. Next speaker is Supervisor Joyce.
Yes, I was just going to point out the fact that the committee vote was three in favor, 2 against. And just would like to say that one reason I'm against this is we're expanding this limit for the entire county, not just for one particular town. Town of Oshkosh would have the ability to regulate its own stormwater if it wished to, but now we're basically forcing all the towns in the county, if they want to be more restrictive, to adopt their own stormwater controls rather than just one town. So I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Supervisor Joyce. Next speaker, Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I voted for this on the committee. I did not see this as anything too extreme. This is still more restrictive, not more restrictive than City of Oshkosh. It's more restrictive than Wisconsin DNR as well. DNR presently allows 20,000 square foot of a developed surface in local ordinances without stormwater retention. So this isn't something where it's we're just going to let people pave as much surface as they want. There's still going to be restrictions. It's just going to be slightly less. So I did not see this as a really major concern. I do think that the towns do have the authority to pass something more restrictive if they want, and because of how the surfaces are different in whichever town you reside in, I think that would be the ideal approach. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Defferting. So given this is the first vote, it's on the report. I'll go ahead and attempt to do a voice vote on the report number 003, Town of Oshkosh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries by voice vote. So we'll move on down to the amendatory ordinance, and that's amendatory ordinance number 080319. Town of Oshkosh request a text amendment to Chapter 23, Article 15, Section 15.1, part of the Winnebago County County Zoning Code. I'll once again call on Supervisor Gabbard.
I move for the adoption of amendatory ordinance number 080319.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 080319. Any discussion? So I see Supervisor Eisen. Thank you. We'll do a recorded vote on this one because it's the amendatory ordinance, so it is different than a report. Any other discussion in regards to the amendatory ordinance? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a recorded vote. Vote aye if you approve amendatory ordinance number 080319. Vote no if you do not. And that motion carries 26-8 with one abstention. Moving on down to the next item, and that's report number 004, Winnebago County Zoning Department. I'll call on Vice Chairman Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the approval of report number 004.
There's a motion and a second to approve report number 004. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Please. Oh, I apologize. I'll call on, we'll hold off on the vote. I apologize. I'll call on Supervisor Snyder, followed by Supervisor Nussbaum.
This is nothing more than a clarification, and it has to do with the Winnebago Shell Station. What had happened was, originally, the Butamore Sanitary District gave Dan Pamperin permission to hook up with their sanitary district, and they mentioned that it might bring them close to their permit limits, and he said, whoa, wait a minute. There's nothing I'm going to do that's going to make people spend money in the Butamore Sanitary District. So he put in holding tanks. The state okayed it. The Butamore Sanitary District said it was okay, but the county just had language a little bit different. So it's just clarifying the language and bringing everybody into the same line. But thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Next speaker, Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure, I mean, it says Town of Neenah took no action on this, but we were in favor of it.
Thank you for that clarification, Supervisor Nussbaum. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll do a voice vote on report number 004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next item, which is amendatory ordinance number 0804-2019, Winnebago County zoning to request an amendment to the Winnebago County sanitary ordinance to add item F to chapter 16.05 holding tanks. I'll once again call on Vice Chairman Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of mandatory ordinance number 0804-2019. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 0804-2019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the final item under zoning reports and ordinances, and that's amendatory ordinance number 080519, Town of Winnebago, on behalf of Robert Miller, to rezone tax parcel number 030-0270 from A2 Agricultural District to R1 Residential District. I'll call on Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the adoption of amendatory ordinance number 080519.
There's a motion and a second to approve amendatory ordinance number 080519.
And again, if I can just
Please.
amplify on that, this property is along Highway D. It is the future site of the Winnebago Fire Station Training Center. The rezone to R1 is the only way we could get the conditional use permit for that. So.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And that concludes that portion of our agenda in regards to zoning reports and ordinances. So moving on down to resolutions and ordinances. First item on the agenda, please Supervisor Finch, you.
Mr. Chairman, due to the fact that there's something in the back, I would like, after Resolution 183-082019, take a short 5-10-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on down to resolution number 180-082019, commendation for Adelita Garcia Martinez. I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for Resolution 180-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second. Please go ahead, Supervisor Rasmussen.
On August 2nd, Angel Garcia Martinez retired from Parkview Health Center after 30 years of dedicated service as a nurse aide, clerk receptionist, unit assistant, and custodian. Angel always had a cheerful, positive attitude, a great sense of humor, and the willingness to go that extra mile. Please join me in expressing our wholehearted gratitude for Angel's years of service and best wishes for her future in retirement.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. There was a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next item. That's resolution number 181-082019, commendation for Mary Grundy. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen. There's a motion and a second. Please go ahead, Supervisor.
Mary Grundy is retiring after working for Winnebago County since February of 1987. Mary was a part of the inception of all our mental health programs, such as the Community Support Program, Comprehensive Community Service, and Targeted Case Management Services. Mary is one who will do what is needed to service our clients and get the job done, including transferring to another team when asked. She embraces things with ease and keeps a positive attitude. When Mary's peers were asked what they will most miss about Mary, responses included her expert knowledge on medications and medical conditions, her wisdom, her guidance to her peers when it came to challenging issues, and her constant willingness to help others. We wish Mary well in her retirement and thank her on behalf of the many she has touched over the years.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. There was a motion and a second, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 182-082019, disallowed claim of Jason Davis. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
And I move for resolution number 182-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 182-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next item. That's resolution number 183-082019, disallowed claim of Bernie Sorensen. I'll once again call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 183-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 183-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next resolution. It's resolution number 184-082019. Support, censure, and issuance of a no confidence vote against Winnebago County Coroner Barry Busby. I'll call on Supervisor Wingren. There's a motion and a second. Yes, and if I could, just one really quickly, Supervisor. The only thing I would ask is that our discussion and our debate be on the actual item in regards to the actual item and the facts in the actual resolution. There's been a lot of discussions and different things at different levels, but I would ask that the discussion here tonight be on the actual action that we are considering in the resolution, as well as the information in that resolution. So please, go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you.
Second?
Sorry.
Yes, there was a motion second. Please go ahead, Supervisor Wingren.
I guess it goes without saying that this is hard, it's sad, and it's unpleasant, yet it is necessary. Your Judiciary and Public Safety Committee has jurisdiction over the Clerk of Courts, the County Clerk, the Veteran Service Officer, the Corp Counsel, the District Attorney, the Register of Deeds, the Sheriff's Department, the Child Support Office, and the Coroner. We oversee budgets, overall operation of these offices, and it's an honor and a pleasure to do so. All of us on this committee take this responsibility very, very seriously. Tonight, we stand at this time, in this place, to say we have found one of these elected officials wanting. In the areas of responsibility, accountability, basic work ethic, and public trust, this resolution of censure is frankly the least we can do to publicly say without hesitation, we do not accept, we do not approve, we do not condone the abuse of public trust. Representing the public is a great honor, and with that, it is a great responsibility. We cannot overlook this pattern of behavior as much as we'd like to. This resolution itself lists the instances where we have problems. And I can assure this board and the public, this is not a rush to judgment. We have looked at this and examined this for 4 months. We met in closed session 3 times to go over these items that are in the resolution. Right now, we are facing 2 legal actions, which make it very difficult to openly reveal each and every other allegation that we looked at. Also, it would be wrong to do so. We only refer to allegations that can be proven at this time. Those are all listed in the document you have, the resolution. It has to do with absence from office. If you remember I think it started last October during the budget session. Even though department heads knew when those budget hearings were going to be held, the coroner did not show up. He was in Hawaii. Since he's gone, and that was all documented, we had to pay others to do his job. You can't slop at the public trough. Elected office is the responsibility. If you don't want to do the job, don't run for it. What kind of example for other department heads and elected officials is this? It's a slap in the face to the proud, loyal, hardworking, honest employees in his office and others. Then there are the charges of sexual harassment, which I won't go into. The press has been very thorough and very accurate in reporting the various abuses. I commend each and every one of them for getting this out to the public. Right is right and wrong is wrong. This is not a legal proceeding, however. We do not want to go into great deal for the reasons I stated, and we do not want to cause harm to Mr. Busby. We cannot and will not jeopardize any legal action that is underway or contemplated. It's hard, if not impossible, to say which of the allegations was the straw that broke the camel's back and led to this censure resolution. Probably it is the sum total of all the ethical and behavioral lapses that add up to our concluding that we must act in this way. Again, we respect Mr. Busby's rights. We are county board supervisors. Let's supervise. That's our responsibility. To do nothing is not responsible. As I said to start with, this is hard, this is unpleasant. However, the buck stops here, with us, in this place, with this resolution. We have listened, examined, researched, evaluated, investigated, learned, and so on, all kinds of documents and testimony. Much of it not very pleasant. This is our business as representatives of the people. We can do better. We deserve better. Good government demands better. Tonight, as a body, I urge you to say, we no longer accept, condone, or approve of the job our coroner is doing. We censure his behavior and declare we have no confidence in him staying in this office. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Next speaker, Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Defferting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too serve on the Public Safety Committee and have been privy to the discussions beginning back on May 15th or so when my wife heard County Executive Harris call for the coroner's resignation. At this time, in this place, I moved to postpone Resolution 184 to our meeting Tuesday, September 3rd, subject to the receipt by the sheriff of a resignation letter from the coroner when it would be removed from that agenda. It is my opinion this resolution has done its work, the work that the administration has been trying since May 15th to do, to get the coroner to resign. He has publicly stated that he will resign October 31st, 2019. Well, he'll get a couple of $6,000 checks between now and then, but I can live with that one. My concern has always been that Mr. Busby's recent behavior. He has announced publicly that he is dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. That is not an issue that's addressed in the resolution because it was privileged information which was discussed in closed session and is under investigation by an investigator, an attorney, to get all the facts so that the county could remove him from office the way the statutes for Wisconsin state, and that is removal by the governor. But then he has to have a public hearing, and you have to have all your I's dotted and T's crossed. My concern about his behavior has been its impact on as a threat to the public safety. And it's documented in this resolution, and it's on line 36. Section 5934 1B, Wisconsin statutes provides that the coroner shall exercise all the powers and duties of the sheriff and undersheriff in that county in their absence. What that means is that an individual with a concern with post-traumatic stress disorder that has impacted his ability to do his job would be commander of the sheriff's department, should the sheriff and his chief deputy, become incapacitated. I'd like to ask for someone to get a second so that we can go forward and accomplish. There is an investigation that's ongoing, and if it turns up any malfeasance in office that there has been discussion about in closed session, he will be prosecuted, I would believe. But at this point in time, he has submitted his his resignation to the public. I think the case is closed for this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Eisen. So there was a motion to postpone. If you could please clarify, because you said to a specific date, and I missed that.
Yes, to the next board meeting, September 3rd.
To the September 3rd
and that
board
the
meeting.
objective would be to have that letter of resignation submitted to the sheriff, as our county executive has described the procedure for the official acceptance.
So there was
that would basically close the book on this activity. But it won't close the book on the investigation, because if there's malfeasance, that'll be dealt with.
Okay. So the motion is to postpone to the September 3rd, which is actually a special orders meeting, just so you're aware, to the September 3rd meeting. There was a second, so that does take precedence. The second, if you could please clarify who seconded it? That was Supervisor Bender who seconded it. So that motion now does take precedent, so that is what's on the table, to postpone this resolution to September 3rd. So any other discussion going forward until we resolve this motion is on the motion to postpone to September 3rd, and that is debatable. So I will move in line to those who had already called in, but the discussion now is specifically on to postpone it to September 3rd. I'll call on Supervisor Snyder, specifically on the motion to postpone to September 3rd.
It is not. It is, as we spoke earlier, I had a constituent of mine in Winnebago who sent me a letter and asked that it be read into the record.
Yeah,
So
and so what I'd ask is if you can hold that so we can clarify the postponement, and then we will allow you as the first person after that postponement vote is up or down. Okay? So next speaker is Supervisor Smith, followed by Supervisor Finch. Specifically on the motion to postpone to September 3rd. No? Okay, thank you, Supervisor Smith. Supervisor Lenz, specifically on the motion to postpone.
I just wanted to get an official definition of censure and the results if we were to go with the non-confidence vote. What I'm looking for is there a time frame so that the individual will have the opportunity to formally put in his resignation? That will determine whether if he has the opportunity to still resign formally, that will lead to my determination on whether I'll vote for the
I
postponement.
mean, I'll let the Corporation Counsel answer that, but I think I can answer it because our resolution is us speaking with one vote. It is not binding to any other effect to him. But please clarify if I'm incorrect, Corporation Counsel.
Chairman Ramos, you are correct. If the body votes in favor of this resolution, that does not take away Coroner Busby's ability to resign.
So he would still have time to formally put in a resignation before any action would be taken against him, if we voted to censor him.
Correct. Correct. Assuming he proceeded and basically did what he indicated he was going to be doing earlier tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lenz. Next speaker is Supervisor Finch, followed by Supervisor Ellis, specifically on the postponement to September 3rd.
My answer would be no, and the main reason being is when you do something wrong, you must take the punishment. Otherwise, we're just leaving ourselves wide open for other people and other problems because we allowed this person to do this and not that person. So I feel we should continue what we started 5 minutes ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Finch. Next speaker is Supervisor Ellis, followed by Supervisor Shorsey, specifically on the postponement to September 3rd.
Thank you, Chairman. A week ago Monday, we had a closed session for over 2 hours, and we had a 5-0 vote from the Judiciary Committee. And one Judiciary Committee just spoke up right now, which he's got a right to speak, but I would rather not have this postponed. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellis. Next speaker, Supervisor Shorsey, followed by Supervisor Powers, specifically on the postponement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, believe that no, we should not postpone this action. Keep in mind that the active behavior has been ongoing at least 10 months now, and possibly longer. We're looking at that evidence. So I think we need to act on the behavior that we found that was out of line. And it is very unfortunate that this happens to a leader, but anyone can be in this position where they can have a good career, and then because of lack of character, lack of judgment, lack of integrity, they find themselves in this situation. So it's, we've seen it everywhere, where people have just gotten to a point and for some reason they go off the rails. The PTSD, in my opinion, is not an issue. When you look at the type of problems we identified, and for those things we do have evidence. So these things did occur. And I might point out, one of the things I was struck with when I asked the question about if a person finds themselves reacting to something at work, and it's certainly not unusual in the health and healthcare world and law enforcement, other arenas, but then you take action to deal with your circumstance, and you do a formal request for a leave of absence. There are laws that protect us in those situations, and none of those things were done. So at best, it was ignorance, at least it was arrogance on our coroner's behalf, that there was no protocol followed in the case of his alleged PTSD. So I would encourage you not to be afraid to take action. These things did occur. It's an offense to the county board and to county residents and taxpayers, and it's been going on for a while. So let's not continue it. Let's let him know that we do indeed want him to resign, and make sure that he does. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Shorsey. Next speaker, Supervisor Powers, followed by Supervisor Gabbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A comment and a question. My question is, and just because I don't know, normally under special orders meetings, we don't have things that we vote on. It is okay to vote on something at a special orders meeting on the 3rd?
If we as a board decided to put it on the agenda, we can do that. Typically, we don't, but that's the motion, and we
Okay.
would have that latitude if we as a body decide.
Okay, and then my comment would be that I too have been diagnosed with PTSD, but I don't see that as a reason for him to use as why he can't do his job and why we have to postpone this until such time as he resigns. I'm against this postponement. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker, Supervisor Gabbard, followed by Supervisor Wojciechowski.
I have a question. If we make a move to vote on this postponement until September 3rd, and for some reason, if we would get a letter of resignation delivered to the Sheriff's Department by that time, could we then pull this motion on September 3rd if that would satisfy the group that he had resigned and done it due process?
If we voted to postpone it, it would be on the agenda because this body would have made that determination to put it on the agenda that day.
But at the meeting.
At the meeting, absolutely, you could pull it. Yes, of course.
That's what I'm
Correct.
saying. If at the meeting, there is a letter of resignation that's been delivered to the Sheriff's Department following all the due process, could someone make a motion to pull that resolution?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Supervisor Wojciechowski, followed by Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do understand the reasoning behind Eisen doing this, but I am against this. As stated many times, this has been a long process. Mr. Busby was given the opportunity to submit his resignation before it got to this point. But we are at this point now, and I think we need to act on it. And, as mentioned previously before, be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and show that we are, against these actions that have been taken. So I would ask you to not postpone this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Next speaker, Supervisor Smith, followed by Supervisor Binder, specifically on the postponement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm against this postponement as well. We spent a lot of time coming to this process. To come to a vote of censure and no confidence is not an easy thing to do. And considering that in the past, the coroner had done a good job, but his actions recently negates what he has done in the past, and I believe that the censure vote should go forward.
Thank you, Supervisor Smith. Next speaker, Supervisor Benders, followed by Supervisor Warnke.
I worked with a co-worker that was working for the sheriff's department, and he basically had to leave the sheriff's department. He found like a 3-year-old girl in a cornfield that was basically murdered, and he couldn't deal with it. I mean, he was never the same after that. And the coroner has looked at that time after time after time again, and he's given us numerous years of good service. Yes, he made some mistakes. When did it start bothering him? I mean, could I look at somebody basically that been murdered, and it's a gruesome scene, and year after year I look at that, and eventually it's going to get the best of me. And maybe he didn't make good judgments, you know, but I know at the last budget, he was looking for a Jeep, and we gave him a hard time over that. We didn't want to approve that because he could have found a cheaper vehicle. You know, he was basically fell out of the good graces of this board years ago. And I think by giving him a few days to resign, yeah, he made a mistake. I agree with you. Everybody, he basically didn't do what he should have done. But I don't think he was a sound mind. He should have been basically put himself on basically medical so that he could get the help he needs. You know, I mean, I would hate to see that man have to basically, we take his powers away and then he's the next suicide because he needs help. You know, he basically needs somebody to care for him and to give him another chance so that he can basically resign and at least let the court system, if he had sexual harassment, then fine, let the court deal with that. But I don't see why we can't give the man till September 3rd, a few days, to basically resign and have a little bit of dignity that, yeah, he's messed up. I agree with you. You know, but if I seen what he's seen in my lifetime, I can guarantee I wouldn't be here either. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bender. Next speaker, Supervisor Warnke, specifically on the postponement.
I'm just going to call a question.
Thank you, Supervisor Warnke. That's an easy one since you're the last speaker. So, seeing no other speakers, we don't even have to vote on that one. All right, so moving on to a vote. We're going to do a roll call vote, given the level of the discussion and the seriousness of this. So if you vote aye, you would be approving the postponement to September 3rd. If you do not approve of the postponement, you'd vote nay. And this would require a simple majority to pass or majority to fail.
Slide the screen over so we can see the vote.
And that motion fails 11 to 23 with one abstention. So we are now back on the main motion to support censure and issuance of a no confidence vote. Before we begin, I will call on Supervisor Snyder. I said I would give him an opportunity to read a letter that he had. Please go ahead, Supervisor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received this letter as an email. I'll enter it into the record. I'll give it to the clerk afterwards. Dear Mr. Snyder, I'm writing this letter to offer a different side than what is currently being portrayed regarding Winnebago County Coroner Barry Busby. I worked for Winnebago County as a deputy coroner under Barry Busby. I highly regard Barry as a county coroner. When Barry took over as Winnebago County Coroner, the office didn't have a great reputation. Barry turned the office around very early on. I worked as a deputy on and off for the better part of 10 years. During my employment, Barry was always professional, caring, and available to assist me when needed when I was on call. Specifically, I would like to rebut the accusation regarding organ and tissue donations. Somehow, this very important aspect of the job of a coroner has been turned into a negative with accusations I never experienced. In my experience, I was trained to talk to and offer tissue and organ donation when applicable. If family members were interested and wanted more information, I worked as the liaison to make that happen. If the family wasn't interested in donating, the matter was closed and we continued through the process of death investigation and connecting the family with a funeral home when needed. I was never asked or encouraged to push donations. It was my experience that families on the fence were extremely satisfied with the decision to donate, as it brought a positive to a negative situation. There is also concern with Barry taking too much time off, quote unquote. Please don't underestimate the cumulative effect of taking death calls. Each time I took a break from working as a deputy was directly related to burnout. Burnout caused by seeing, smelling, and touching death scenes the average person can't fathom. I often wondered how Barry was able to carry a pager 24/7, 365 days a year. It was my experience Barry was always available, even while on vacation. Is there another job within the county that requires that level of dedication? Barry does it with compassion, time and time again. Sincerely, James Gentry. And I'll give this to the clerk for entry.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. I'll call on Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to call the question.
There's a motion to call the question. Is there a second? Second. There's a motion and a second to call the question. That is not debatable. So that does take precedent. So we'll go to a vote to call the question. Just so you're aware, that would require a 2/3 majority to pass to call the question. Okay? So we'll do that by a roll call vote. Vote aye if you want to call the question, which would mean that you would end debate on this, and then we would immediately go to an actual vote on the resolution. Vote no if you don't, in which case then we would be back debating the resolution. Certainly. So the motion is to call the question, which is to essentially end debate on discussing this any further. And if we pass that, that means we wouldn't debate anymore. We'd go straight to an up or down vote about the resolution to support censure and issuance. If it failed, we would be continuing to debate and then vote on it once all debate is finished. Okay? Requires 2/3 majority in order for us to end debate. And that motion passes 29-5 with one abstention. So we have closed debate on it, and we'll go directly to a vote on the motion to support censure and issuance of a no confidence vote against Winnebago County Coroner Barry Busby. We will do a roll call vote. Vote aye if you approve. Vote nay if you don't. Just to clarify for this, it is a majority vote only required for passage of the censure and issuance of a no confidence vote. And that motion passes 29-1 with 5 abstentions. So that carries, which essentially means this body has issued a censure and no confidence vote. It is not binding in any other way in regards to the county coroner. Okay? Moving on down to the next resolution. And we have an adopted agenda this evening, so we are moving on down to Resolution 195-082019. And that is to amend the table of organization for the Winnebago County District Attorney's Office to eliminate 1 full-time administrative associate 5 position and add 1 full-time crime data analyst position. And I will call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Mr. Chairman, I move for resolution number 195-0829.
There was a motion and a second to approve resolution number 195-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Please.
I just have a question over that. Can you tell me please why that one was moved up in Counselor's and isn't even here? There's other ones sitting back there since this has all started?
There was a request for it to move up, and it was part of the original motion to adopt the agenda this evening that we passed.
Thank you.
So that brings us back now to resolution number 185-082019, authorized transfer of jurisdiction and maintenance of a portion of County Trunk Highway GG to the town of Vinland. I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for the adoption of Resolution 185-08-2019, authorized transfer of jurisdiction and maintenance of a portion of County Trunk Highway GG to the town of Vinland.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 185-082019. Any discussion? I'll call on Supervisor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to know what the reasoning is for this.
I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht.
The highway director is in the back.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. The reason this is taking place is it's actually only 740 feet of County Highway G where it connects to County Highway I. And the reason is we're relocating that intersection with next year's project south. So that portion of highway would have been abandoned. However, the town of Finland has their fire hydrant or fire water source for their fire department located in that section. So the town of Inland asked if they could take jurisdiction of that portion of highway so they would have access to their water source.
Thank you. And thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next resolution. That's resolution number 186-082019. Authorize a 4-year agreement between Waupaca County and Winnebago County for participation in the Upper Fox Wolf River Regional Demonstration Farm Network. I'll call on Supervisor Fari. Okay, I'll call on Supervisor Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I vote to adopt resolution number 186-082019.
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. And so we do have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I knew one day, Supervisor Schneider, that it would come in handy putting the vice chairman and the secretary on my agenda just in case. So today it finally did. All right, moving on down to the next resolution. That's resolution number 187-082019. Okay, please, I'll call on Corporation Counsel Marianne Miller, and that's specifically on this one. So why don't we bring it forward and so we'll bring it forward to the floor and then we'll have you give a comment. Okay? So resolution number 187-082019, support legislation to end the use of personal conviction waivers for school and daycare center immunizations. I'll call on Supervisor Norton.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 187-082019.
There's a motion and a second, and Corporation Counsel has a clarification, so please, Corporation Counsel, Marianne Miller.
Actually, this is involving a housekeeping detail. I was told after this was prepared that there is pending legislation. I was not aware of that. Given the fact that there is pending legislation, the vote required for passage is 3/4 of the members present tonight. So it is not a majority vote, it is the 3/4 required.
Could I ask the question of what their legislation number is? Because I talked to, and Doug Gearing could talk to it, he's in the back. I talked to Gordon Hinch, who I think is the main sponsor, he didn't give me a number. I mean, do you have that legislative number?
No, but I was told by Doug Guerin's office that there was pending legislation, and that's why it should be 3/4, and obviously, if that's the case, there should be 3/4 present. Maybe Doug could educate us.
Please go right ahead, Director.
Yes, thank you. 2019 Senate Bill 262 was introduced on June 6th related to eliminating the personal conviction exemption for immunization. So that is still pending. Senate Bill 262. And there's a corresponding, probably assembly bill as well, but I know I have that one here today.
Thank you.
So hearing that, Mr. Chairman, and our Corporation Council, could we incorporate that somehow in this resolution so that says that? The 20, whatever the bill he just said?
Yes, that would be corrected in the final resolution, correct? Yes, we will do that. Thank you. And just so everyone's clear, that's the 3/4 vote by our own county board rules when it's pending legislation. Okay? Thank you, Supervisor Norton. Next speaker, Supervisor Nussbaum, followed by Supervisor Wojciechowski.
Yeah, this is disturbing to me because big government keeps striving to take our rights away and our freedoms, and this is just one more step in that direction. You know, every right that is taken away, we lose control of our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Nussbaum. Next speaker, Supervisor Wojciechowski, followed by Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish the media people would have stayed around because I think this one is worthy of attention too. I think it's important, and I do support it. I'm glad the Health Board brought this forward because I think it's an issue that's happening around the country and could be happening here very shortly. I was doing a little bit of research just prior to the meeting about this, and I learned that Wisconsin has the 5th highest rate of measles vaccine refusal in the nation. And then they had a chart. It said percent of 2-year-olds in Wisconsin without measles vaccines, 2018, and specifically Winnebago County was about 12.4%. And I think that's alarming. I think, to the point of, people not wanting to vaccinate, that's their choice. But, it does have harmful effects on those people who are feeling that effect of someone not getting vaccinated. They, you said, I don't remember exactly what you said, but people losing their lives from big government, but people are literally losing their lives because people refuse to get vaccinated in these locations. And we're talking about, in the resolution, it said school and daycare centers, and those are areas where children who are very susceptible to, people who aren't vaccinated. So I think this is an important resolution to support, and I hope you would support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wojciechowski. Next speaker is Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Wingren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we refer this back to the Legislative Committee for discussion at that level.
Okay. So there's a motion to refer this to the Legislative Committee. And so that motion now takes precedent. That is debatable. So next, we'll move to... Yeah, there was a second. Supervisor Fari. Thank you, Supervisor. So we'll move to Supervisor Wingren, specifically on the motion to refer to the Legislative Committee.
Yes, it fits right in here. Obviously, I support this resolution. I think it's great. But I looked at the agenda for Monday's Legislative Committee, and I think this resolution or one like it is on there. Is it not, Tom?
I believe something like it is on there, yes.
So, why would you refer something back if it's already there? Why not just do it?
I'll call on Director Gearin because we did have a discussion at the Board of Health in regards to this very question in regards to the Legislative Committee. Feel free, Director Gearin, to share some of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you're correct. The Dork County actually sent a letter to Winnebago County that was received by the county clerk's office. That's on the agenda tonight as a notification. That was referred to the Legislative Committee, but we did have a lengthy discussion at the past Legislative Committee related to this resolution.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Wingren, anything further? No. Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. Next speaker, Supervisor Norton, specifically on the referral to the Legislative.
Yeah, I guess I can go either way, but I'm against it because it's before us now. I don't know what we're going to find out from the Legislative Committee which is going to influence you more. It'll just come back before you probably next month. It's before you now. We gave you 2 pieces of materials in which you should have looked at that could educate you. That's why I think it should be dealt with now and voted on now.
Thank you, Supervisor Norton. And just for a little background, we actually did discuss this at the Board of Health, because I actually mentioned about, if I remember correctly, referring it to the legislative. The bottom line is the Board of Health was pretty strongly in favor of this, and it felt that we're comfortable enough bringing it forward to this body, and we would let this body decide if they really felt it needed to go to the legislative committee, then that would happen. It frankly is just coincidence, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it's on the agenda for legislative because that's the Door County resolution, which happens to be very similar because this is being debated throughout the counties in our state. So I'll now call on Supervisor Lenz.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess the only question I have is why would we be sending this back to the legislative committee? I didn't really catch a reason for that, and I don't want to just send things to committee unless there's a question or something that needs to be resolved, just to postpone it, our vote on it.
And just a little clarification, and it might help you, is it's technically a referral to the legislative committee is what's being requested versus a refer back, because the discussion and the recommendation is from the Board of Health.
My apologies, but
no.
What was the reasoning for referring it there then?
You'd have to ask the individual that made the motion, but I suspected he's probably thinking it's a legislative matter. He wanted to give the legislative committee an opportunity to consider. Am I accurate, Supervisor Eisen? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Lenz. Next speaker, Supervisor Powers, specifically on the referral to the legislative committee.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just don't understand the reason why we would send this back to legislature when the Board of Health has decided that this is what they think needs to be done on a health issue. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are expecting the legislative representatives to be present at the legislative committee. This would be an opportunity to present that concept directly to state legislators, and if the senator shows up, to him as well. That's a prime benefit.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. So the motion before us is a referral to the legislative committee. I'm going to attempt to do this by a voice vote. Say aye if you want to refer it. Say nay if you don't. So aye if you want to refer. Say aye. Aye. Vote no. Say no if you don't. No. And so the nays have it. All right. So we are back to, I thought a voice vote might work, and so that's why I decided to take a crack at it. But please, point of order, Supervisor Fari.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe it's possible for this body to override the rules of the board. Any legislative matter, and the word is right in the resolution, needs to be referred to the proper committee. That's the issue. Support legislation. That needs to go into the legislative committee first, and then back to this body. If you take this action, you're violating the rules of the board. I mean, it's...
So I'll call on our corporation counsel to try to clarify your question, Supervisor Fari. Although we've already...
It does say, the legislative committee shall review proposed federal and state legislation and administrative regulations impacting upon the county and shall provide and inform area legislators and Wisconsin Legislative Committee of the recommendations of the county board. I think it came up because actually when Supervisor Norton said, well, what is the bill that's attached to this, because there was a question regarding majority versus 3/4 of members present, that probably brought to people's minds, wait a minute, this is legislation, and why shouldn't we have it reviewed by the legislature? But in any event, I agree with Chairman or Supervisor Fari on this point. I think the legislative committee should look at it as well.
We've already voted to to not refer it. So we are still on the motion, no matter what. Well, we,
There's some way we can always redo it. They don't call how it's done. So if the young lady would come up to the pulpit and tell me how to do it, I'll do it.
so just to clarify what I said, we're just back on the motion. Someone can make another motion to refer it to committee, and this body can decide if they agree and want to change their vote. I didn't take anything away. We're just back on the motion to,
If you're going to do this, you need to move to suspend the rules first. Then
so we are back on the main motion to support the legislation. All that occurred is that that motion failed. It doesn't mean that someone couldn't put a motion forward again. We're just back on the main motion.
The main
So-
motion wasn't voted on.
Yes, so we are still on the main motion, so it is still open for any sort of motion that the body decides to make. I'll call on Supervisor Gabbard, followed by Supervisor Fari.
I'll make a motion to take this resolution and present it to the legislative committee.
Okay? So there's a motion and a second to refer it to the legislative committee. So it's a fair question. I don't know the answer. I'll direct her, but I think I know the answer because we have not approved anything yet. These are just motions while we are debating. No actual formal action on anything has been taken. This is simply how we are deciding to move it.
It would be a motion to reconsider the last motion.
And if you think that's the most appropriate way, we can do that. Because we are simply on a motion right now, the main motion.
You can't keep doing it over and over and over until you get it right. And challenge that ruling to the body.
So the motion right now is Supervisor Gabbart's. Was there a second to it? There was a motion, a second. So that's the motion on the floor. Now Supervisor Wingren is challenging whether we can do that or not.
I agree with Mr. Norton, you can't just vote twice and keep moving.
Let's let the Corporation Council have an opportunity to consider, because that's the motion on the table right now. And the question is whether or not we can really do that. So trying to give her an opportunity to do that. Yes. I'll go ahead and recognize Vice Chairman Egan.
Mr. Chairman, this could be done very easily if you, as chairman of the Board of Health, would pull this because it's already on the legislative. If you want to do that, it's Public Health Resolution requesting the Wisconsin Legislative in the use of personal conviction waivers for school and daycare center immunization. That's number 9 in our meeting on Monday, if you want to do it that way.
I will do that. I am going to pull this motion tonight. I have that latitude as the chairman of the Board of Health. I'm sorry, Supervisor Norton. I needed to make a decision.
I want to explain to the whole board. When we took to the Board of Health, there is no state legislation applied to this action. I also said at that time, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, that I said it should take a 2/3 or 3/4 or a majority. I asked that question too. Did I have the same concern? I don't have a problem with it. I said the answer was come back when it's been fine. But I did bring up those concerns with the Board of Health meeting. I did, like I say, when we took it up, there was no SB, whatever it is. So.
Yep, and it's a fair point, Supervisor Norton. I also brought up this concern, so I think this is a remedy that will move us in the right direction. So I will pull that resolution for this evening. So we will move on then to, well, it's pulled. So there's no more debate on it tonight. It will be at the Legislative Committee because it already is at the next one. So move on down to the next resolution. That's resolution number 188-08-2019. Authorize the transfer of an additional $77,046 from the undesignated general fund balance to the Winnebago County Facilities Department capital outlay account for the concrete base and sewer and utility hookups needed to secure independent housing for Chapter 980 offenders. I'll call on Supervisor Keller. There's a motion and approve to approve resolution number 188-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those, I apologize, Supervisor Fari. Please proceed.
Thank you. I think my question is for Corp Counsel, because obviously I'm on the Highway Committee. I'm aware of the situation that happened, what's it been now? Several months. But then there were some issues, I understand, where these individuals might be placed in Fremont or something. Can you clarify that? Is it still the direction that people are going to be placed within this geographical area? Is that determined, or is that just speculation?
No, that is not speculation. There was a decision made in this very court by Judge Basil Lear.
Okay.
And until that site, right by the Highway Department, gets solidified, the person that we were talking about is currently in the Fremont area.
So they could remain in the Fremont area?
They could remain, but the city that approved, as you know, we have a number of other 980s that we are waiting to see.
Yes, I'm aware, yes.
But the thought is that there is going to be a need for this, because the plan would be to move the person who is in Fremont to this site, because that was what was decided probably now 6 months ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Let me elaborate a little bit then. I understand the requirements under the law. We do have to provide housing for these individuals within Winnebago County, I believe. However, I objected at the time, and I object now to the specific location of this site. So I will not support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. I'll call on Supervisor Binder.
When I was at the legislative meeting, there's actually two people, I believe, in Fremont, and isn't the state paying $2,900 a month rent? And the person that bought that trailer does business with the state. So I don't really think that we're going to get to transfer that person to our facility, but I will support it for the future. But I don't believe those two people are leaving the Fremont trailer, as that guy purchased that, and he works with the state on these sex offenders. He has multiple other places where they put them. So that was the impression I got from when I was there.
I can tell you that we were charged with I can tell you we were charged with finding housing for one. And then my understanding was there was a second 980 put in that trailer, and fortunately Sheriff Motz is here, and he might have a better recollection than I do regarding the situation.
The one offender is in the Fremont area, and he remains there. That's a vendor that works with the state of Wisconsin, but doesn't work for the state of Wisconsin. There was a second offender that was going to be moved either to that location in Fremont or to the new location that we're proposing. However, he violated and was sent back. We still have 6 offenders, though, and I just today met with, or got an email from Probation and Parole for temporary living placement of not 980 offenders, but sex offenders that we have a very difficult time placing. They are interested in renting if we don't have 980 offenders in there. This is a 980, this location takes care of the 980 offenders for us, up to, if we can get double occupancy, 2 of them. But in the absence of any 980 offenders, they would be interested in having a different sex offender, not a 980, but one that is very restricted as to where they can live.
And just to clarify, the city only had granted us permission to have one person in that mobile home, but certainly it does not prevent us from going back if we have a two-bedroom home and asking for an exception to that.
And then we would be reimbursed at $1,400 a month, correct?
I would assume, I know that we would certainly charge a certain amount, and then we would have to come to an agreement, or the state would have to agree regarding the amount that we would be charging. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Supervisor Bender. All right, seeing no other call-ins, we'll do a voice vote on this. All those in favor of Resolution 188082018 to authorize the transfer of additional $77,046 from the undesignated general fund balance to Winnebago County Facilities Department capital outlay account. I apologize. I think I have the wrong, no, I have it right. Capital outlay account for the concrete base and sewer and utility hookups needed to secure independent housing for Chapter 9 Indy offenders. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. That does carry. So motion carries. Moving on down to the next resolution. Resolution number 189-082019. Authorize an additional $578,900 to the capital project for the Winnebago County Facilities and Property Management Department to upgrade the controls and functionality of the 3 courthouse elevators, funded with an advance from the general fund to be reimbursed from a subsequent bond issue. I'll call on Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of Resolution 189-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve Resolution number 189-082019. Any discussion? I see Supervisor Bender.
I guess I would like to know if there's a way we can improve the bidding system. On these next 2 items, there's only received 1 bid. You know, when I basically have something done on my house, if I have a roof done, I like to get 3 estimates. And all we ever get, we put it out for bids, we usually get 1 bid. So this person throws a bid in, doesn't really, you know, if he gets the work, that's great, he's gonna make a lot of money, I think. And if he doesn't, well, oh well. But when you only get 1 bid, and it's basically exorbitantly over what we, you know, we have a consultant tell us it's gonna be a certain amount of money, and it's almost $600,000 over what we project. I mean, I would approve this, but I would like to see a different bidding system in the future on where we get at least 3 bids so that we know if we actually are getting a fair price.
Our facilities director, Director Elders in the back. Any comment?
We put these bids out online, we advertise in the local paper. The local building clearinghouses get copies of our bids and give it out to all of the contractors. Right now, we are in an economy where people cannot get people to work for them. I've talked to numerous contractors that would be able to take on additional jobs if they could find the people to work. I think we are just in a point in time where there is more work than what people have people to do. So I think we get these bids out. We had the walkthrough and we had 3 people here for it, and only 1 of them bid. We've had other projects, we've had 3 or 4 people here that take out or come to the walkthrough, but we've had, you know, numerous more people take out the bids, but they still decide that they can't do the work in the time frame that we want.
Thank you, Director Elder. I'll also call on our Finance Director, Vicki Fitzgerald.
And to clarify, Mike, for the windows here, we had 3 bids, correct? Okay, so it was only the elevators. We had 1 bid, 3 bids for the windows. Just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you for that clarification, Director Fitzgerald. Next speaker, Supervisor Lenz, followed by Supervisor Buck.
Just a quick question. Do we feel that this additional price tag is because this is a historical building? Or that the challenge of getting people in here is for that reason?
I didn't hear your question.
Do we feel that the additional price tag, because it's a pretty significant amount, is because this is a historical building? Or is it the lack of bids maybe because of the same reason?
The lack of bids, I think, is going to be more related to the fact that there's more work out there than contractors. And this is a relatively specific type of work that requires elevator companies to do it. And
and general contractors to assist them, and they need to be larger than some of the smaller contractors that are around. So I think it's just, there's a lot of work going on out there. We've also had a lot of the economy changing, where a lot of the raw materials now are costing more than they did 6-9 months ago.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Elder, and thank you, Supervisor Lenz. Next speaker, Supervisor Buck, followed by Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is a question for Mike or Vicky, but are we bound by state law to take the lowest bid right now?
No, we are not. We went out for RFPs, so they had, Mike, if you could maybe tell us what other qualifications they needed. We do a grading system and weight it.
This went out for bids.
This was just bids, not the RFP.
And
Okay.
and it's my understanding
Okay.
that we're supposed to award the bid to the lowest responsible bidder. If we decide that we don't have the money for it, to go out for a rebid, we have to change the project significantly, and we don't really have anything significant to change with this. All 3 elevators are tied in together, so I can't phase this in. It's kind of what it is. You know, if we don't get the money, we'll have to wait a period of time to go back out for bid. We've done this once before while I've been here, and we made a change to the bids, and the one bidder that bid for the job came back and doubled their bid. And once you make a decision to close out the previous bid, you can't go back to them. That's the next price.
Thank you for that clarification. Next speaker, Supervisor Fari, followed by Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move to amend line 28 to read the capital project. I'm on the second part of the sentence. The capital project will be advanced from the undesignated fund balance, period. In other words, we got 23 million in reserve. It's time we start sending that back to the taxpayers and quit bonding for these projects. We have the money, let's use it and save the taxpayers an additional tax.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. I'm going to call on the Finance Director for clarification.
We would not want to revise it that way, because that actual be it therefore resolved is saying we're advancing it from the general fund, so the general fund cash, not the undesignated general fund balance. So we would just want to say we'll be funding it through the undesignated general fund balance and get rid of all the reimbursing with subsequent bonds.
That's fine. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, yes, you're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, do you accept that correction as?
Was there a second? Okay. So there was a motion and a second. Could we please clarify the wording? Because, and I'll call on you, Finance Director, and make sure we have it right and make sure it makes sense with what Supervisor is asking.
Sure.
Okay, it would say be it further resolved by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors that funds to pay for the capital project will come, well, let me say, well, let's say, that the capital, how about that the capital project will be funded from the undesignated general fund balance, period.
Okay. So, just to restate it.
One more amendment up in the title. In the title as well, on line 5 and 6, we would not say funded with advance from the general fund to be reimbursed from subsequent bond issue. We would take that out and just to say to be funded with the undesignated general fund balance. Does that make sense?
Okay. So, I'll just restate it. So in the title, on line 5, it says funded with an advance from the general fund to be reimbursed from the subsequent bond issue. You would remove all that and you'd simply add to be funded from the undesignated fund balance.
General fund balance.
From the general fund balance?
Undesignated
I
general
apologize,
fund, because we have different funds, so we want to make sure we
Okay.
say it's the general one.
Okay. So that funded with an advance from the general fund to be reimbursed from a subsequent bond issue would be removed, and it would be, say, to be funded from the undesignated general fund balance. Okay? And then in line 28, after it says will be, everything would be stricken from then on and be replaced by funded from the undesignated fund balance.
No, not correct. We start with line 27, and once you say the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors will pay for the capital project with the funds, or excuse me, will pay for the capital project with the undesignated general fund balance.
Okay.
Yes. Line 30 and 31, the fiscal impact will completely change. And when you're ready for it.
Please.
And it will say, I'm trying to think how I say it. It will say that the undesignated general fund balance will be decreased by $578,900.
Okay. And do you have that, clerk? All right, so is everyone clear on the amendments? All right, so we'll try to do a voice vote. All those in favor say, okay. All right, we will do a recorded vote.
There's a lot of.
Okay. All right, I apologize. All right, next speaker, Supervisor Eisen, did you have anything further? Yes, I have. Okay, please go. Go ahead.
How much has already been appropriated for this elevator project? Have we approved?
$795,000.
$795,000. So
And you did that in March.
we're practically doubling the cost of the project. Now, when and that's already going to be reimbursed from borrowing.
That is correct, and we're working on that borrowing right now.
Okay. Second question is, what majority is needed to pass a general fund balance payout rather than a bonding?
That would be 2/3
Okay, so we only need 2/3.
versus a 3/4 of membership
Right.
for the bonding.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's true, so that you would have to amend that as well, sorry. Well, whatever our 2/3 is for the normal budget transfer.
It'd be 2/3 of the membership.
2/3 of the membership.
Okay, so just to clarify though, the debate going forward is on the amendment because we haven't passed those amendments. So we want to try to keep this clean, that we're first only debating on the amendment in regards to the change in the funding in the title, the change in the fundings on line 27 to 28, and then the fiscal impact on 3031. Okay, so first let's debate those amendments, then we will get back to the main resolution as amended. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? I'll call on Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question was simply going to be about lines 30 and 31 about the fiscal impact, and somebody already jumped in about that, so I'm done.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Next speaker, Supervisor Rasmussen on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have these discussions at Personnel and Finance Committee when they come forward, and I don't recall exactly how this one went, why it was out, for bonding, but I know one of the issues is we have this urge to spend down our general fund, but that affects our bond rating, and maybe we get our finance director to talk about that. And then the second part of it is just what we heard. If the first part of this is being bonded for, it seems like maybe we could comment on how that works. Why would we do it, part of it bonding and part of it out of general fund? That just doesn't seem to make sense.
Sure. We'll ask for the finance director to provide some context.
And that is correct. At the P&F meeting, we did discuss that, and we thought because we already appropriated the $795,000 for bonding, that it would make sense to do the whole project for bonding. So that was our first part. Then what Supervisor Rasmussen said about our Moody's rating when we do go out for bonding, there are a lot of different things they look at. One is how healthy our general fund balance is. They look at our economy as well, many different features. But if we do bring our undesignated general fund balance down too low, which again, we are very, very healthy right now, that could affect our AA1 rating that we currently have for Moody's.
And for that reason, I would hope that the board would listen to the recommendation from the P&F committee, because we do have these discussions at length on this subject. So for that reason, I would say to not change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Rasmussen. Next speaker, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard that discussion many times, debate, and it was clarified by your predecessor a couple of years ago. This AAA bond rating we were talking about, at that time, we needed 14 million to assure that. So if we're going to state that, then factually, what do we need at this point in time to secure a AAA bond rating? I suspect it's not over 15 million.
We currently don't have a AAA, we have a AA1, so I think we've been downgraded since then, because since I've been here, we're a AA1.
What would it be?
But per my predecessors, he sat down with the county executive,
Yes.
and they went over their own fund balance policies, and there is no cut and dry. With what they put together, about 15 million. But Moody's can't tell me that that's a safe spot yet. We're still trying to kind of find what the sweet spot is. So
So a statement made by a member of this board that we need to keep that fund balance that high to retain our bond rating is actually not factual.
It's definitely one part of the bond rating.
But
So
it's not factual because that number is
not
not given.
100%, but I'd have to do some more analysis.
I would
to give you a
suggest
number.
23 million is really excessive
And that is where we are
for a
currently.
county to have in reserve. That's why I brought the resolution forward, and I'll probably do it on the next one too. We need to start spending down that fund balance and quit borrowing money and asking the taxpayers to support that bond with their taxes. And we can do that. We're not amending the levy. That's a separate levy amount that's the taxpayers pay for in regard to debt service. So we can do this. It does not have any negative effect on the county. It has a positive effect on the taxpayers that we represent. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari.
Yeah.
Next speaker, Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was in a, as many of the committee chairmen probably were, a meeting with the county executive and a department head about budget. And it was mentioned at that time that, you know, there's effects that affect our tax levy, how much we can go up, how much we can stay. And the undesignated fund balance can be used at budget time to equate everything, kind of make everything work out. If we need to take money out of that, we can take it out at that time. But I don't think we should be doing it on individual projects throughout the year. I think it should be done when we review the budget and look at the undesignated fund at the same time with the entire budget for the county and the tax levy. So I'm going to oppose this change. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Keller. Supervisor Fari, this is your third time, I believe.
Thank you. If I might respond to that.
Correct, this is his last time.
He is correct. We currently have 28 million approximately. I believe at our budget meeting with Land Water, it was indicated that the county exec intends to withdraw 5 million from that number to maintain the levy. Now, if I'm incorrect, somebody tell me. But that's why I used the number 23 million. So that has already been incorporated into my amendment.
I need to clarify that.
Thank you.
Please, clarify.
Your 28 million is our 2018 ending audit balance. We are already applying, I want to say about 3.1 million for the 2019 budget. And then we've also appropriated different funds already to the general fund balance, including the $450,000 for Mobile Command Center to be one of them.
Yeah.
That brings me down to 23 million right now. Now, if you're talking about the 2020 budget, we're looking at another 4 to 5 million. So that could bring me down to about 19 million, if it all played out that way.
Has the 3.3 been spent? Isn't it anticipated we're not going to need that?
It depends. We don't know what DHS is going to come in at right now. That's usually where we do find our surpluses if they got extra monies from the state. So at this point, we don't know that for 2019. It doesn't, it looks, people are pretty much at their 60% spend right now in most departments.
Okay.
So it'd be a crystal ball at this point for me.
Well, I'll still go with the 23 until we get some more definitive facts, but that's the basis behind all this stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari, and thank you, Director Fitzgerald, for the clarification. Seeing no other call-ins, we're going to go to a roll call vote on the amendment. I'm going to ask the clerk to recite the amendments, because there was an amendment of the funding in the title, there was an amendment to the funding source in 27 to 29, and then the fiscal impact as well. So please, if you could.
So in the title on line 5, we're eliminating funded with an advance, and then all of line 6, and replacing that with to be funded with the undesignated fund, general fund balance. And then down into the body of the resolution on line 27, be it further resolved by the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors will pay for the capital project with the undesignated general fund balance. And then the fiscal impact will simply read, undesignated general fund balance will be decreased by $578,900.
Very good. So that's what we're voting on, that amendment, those three areas on this resolution. Okay, now that's a simple majority to approve that, those motions. Okay? Right, yep, a simple majority to approve these amendments. So vote aye if you are in favor of making those changes. Vote no if you're not in favor of making those changes. No, it is a simple majority for this because it's a subsidiary motion to the main motion. Okay? Everyone clear?
Yep.
All right. And that motion fails 14 to 21. So we are back on the main motion as it was originally written. Okay? Any other discussion on the main motion? Okay? So we are back on the complete wording which came to us outside of committee. All right? Seeing no other discussion, we're going to go ahead and do a roll call vote. This time, it's going to require a 2/3 vote for approval of this. Oh, yeah, I apologize. Thank you for the clarification. I'm sorry. It's a 3/4 vote because we are back to the original motion to pass it. Vote aye if you approve, vote no if you don't. And that passes 33 to 2. So moving on down then to the next resolution. And that's resolution number 190-082019. Authorize an additional $1,518,097 to the capital project for the Winnebago County Facilities and Property Management Department to repair/replace the windows at the courthouse, funded with an advance from the general fund to reimbursed from a subsequent bond issue. I will call on Supervisor Keller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of Resolution 190-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 190-082019. Any discussion? I'll call on Supervisor Defferding, followed by Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious, which company came in with this lowest bid?
I'll call on Director Elder in the back.
Berglund Construction. They're out of the Chicago area.
What's the name again?
Berglund.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Elder, and thank you, Supervisor Defferding. Next speaker, Supervisor Farley, followed by Supervisor Konecki. I apologize, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you state, Mr. Chairman, what the original authorization for the windows has been approved?
I'll call on the Finance Director to answer that question for you, Supervisor Eisen.
Yes, it goes all the way back to 2012 when you first approved the design, and then I believe in 16 the rest of it, and it's $1.2 million.
Thank you, Director Fitzgerald.
So we're better than doubling the cost. Could you explain why the cost has increased so much?
I will defer that to the person who's taking care of the windows.
Director Elder?
This has been a long process to go through with this. If everybody remembers, this is a historic building. We bid it the first time and we got no bidders. We found out, we talked to the contractors that they had some issues with the responsibility for the asbestos and the glazing. We've made some changes to the specifications. And the approval that we had gotten through the State Historical Society was to refurbish and repair the windows as they are and put back insulated windows in the existing frames. That went out for bid, and that came in at $3.6 million. At the time, the county board said, that's way too expensive, we need to find another way to do this. So we went back to the drawing board. We are now replacing the windows with modern materials, modern thermal pane windows, and we've gotten this approved through the State Historical Society. So part of this whole process is that I believe that the engineers, architects that we had back to do the original estimate underestimated the cost. And the passage of time through inflation has raised the prices some. And now we're into the market again, like I've talked on the previous issue, where the cost of people doing business and the materials is just more expensive. Just in the last 6 months, the projects that I've been working on have been hit with about a 15 to 20% increase in material costs.
Now, what's going to happen after we get the new windows in and we maybe want to sandblast the building to get all the stains off of it?
I've
Make it
already
look like the
tried
Human
to.
Services building.
I've already tried to get rid of some of the stains, and we've been denied from the State Historical Society because it adds to the historical aesthetic appearance of the building.
I think we should invite them down, or maybe send them some text photos of the building. And we're going to spend $2.7 million and still have a stained building.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen.
Oh, and I would ask for a recorded vote.
Will do. Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Next speaker, Supervisor Konecki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Elder, can I assume that the panes are lined with argon gas? And what material is the framework?
I believe the framework is going to be an extruded aluminum type window, and it's going to be a double pane, like thermal pane type window, glass going back in the frame. Yeah, I'm going to assume.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Konecki. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll go to a vote. We will do a roll call vote as requested. So vote aye if you approve the authorization of the additional $1,518,097. Vote no if you don't. And what this requires a 3/4 vote. And that passes 31-4. So moving to the next resolution, and that's resolution number 191-082019. Authorize the Winnebago County Parks Department to accept a grant from the Fox River Natural Resources Damage Assessment Council in the amount of $100,000 to assist in funding the replacement of the ice damaged Asylum Point Island Bridge with a metal clear span structure. And please note that there's the amended resolution for this. So I will call on Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for Resolution 191-082019.
So there's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 191-082019, the amended one that refers to Parks and Recreation Committee. Any discussion? I'll call on Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much money has the county appropriated for that project?
I see our Parks Director in the back. I'll call on Director Way.
Parks budget has $40,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. I'll call on Supervisor Youngquist. Nope. All right, thank you. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll go ahead and do a voice vote for resolution number 191-082019 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next resolution. It's resolution number 192-082019. Authorize the General Services Department to enter into a 5-year lease agreement with Gordon Flesh Company Incorporated for dual-purpose copy/fax/scanning machines. I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 192-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 192-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next resolution. It's resolution number 193-082019. Authorize execution of Exposition Center multi-year rental agreement between Winnebago County and the Winnegamie Home Builders Association. I'll call on Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 193-082019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 193-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next resolution. That's resolution number 194-082019. Authorized rental agreement between Winnebago County and Morgan Masterpiece Incorporated, LLC. I'll once again call on Supervisor Finch.
I move for resolution number 194-082019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 194-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll once again do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have already taken care of resolution 195, so we'll move down to resolution number 196-082019. Amend the table of organization for the Winnebago County Public Health Department to eliminate one full-time administrative associate public health position and add one full-time accounting associate position. I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 196-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 196-082019. Any discussion? I see Supervisor Norton. I'll call on Supervisor Norton.
I voted for it to help, but the question I have is, are we not paying the person, okay, the person who had this position, she took a different position within the county, and we're replacing her with a different person, we're going to pay her more. Why did we not keep the person who is doing that work pretty much in that same position.
I'll call on our Human Resources Director, Mike Collard.
We're not actually losing the person. She got promoted to a job in the most valuable department in the county, namely Human Resources. In recognition, frankly, of the fact that she was probably working above and beyond her job description for some time. She, talented person, really was working beyond what her job title would indicate, and obviously, we look at all positions as they become vacant before we fill them to see if they're the right position and the right level. And I know Mr. Guerin, the Public Health Director, talked with me, talked with the Finance Department as well, and the Finance Department was very supportive of getting someone with real accounting credentials in that department. Since it's not our largest department, but it's one of our large, medium-sized departments, I would say, and they also have a lot of complicated grants to keep track of in terms of the charges and revenue from the grants. So we really felt that we should have someone with some accounting and bookkeeping credentials for that.
So am I assuming correctly that the person who got the promotion is getting paid more than she did in the health department? Am I presuming that correctly?
Yes, the person did get an increase to move to a higher rated or higher graded job that's in the HR department.
Don't totally understand it, but okay.
Thank you, Director Collard, and thank you, Supervisor Norton. Seeing no other call-ins, we did have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 196-082019. We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the next resolution. That's resolution number 197-082019. Amend the table of organization for Parkview Health Center by reducing 16 full-time equivalent nurse aide positions and adding 16 full-time equivalent hospitality aide positions. I'll call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 197-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 197-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor? Okay, right under the gun, I'll call on Supervisor Lenz.
So just a question, is there any duties or responsibilities that the new title will not be able to fulfill? And is there, I mean, at one point in time, we identified that we needed 16 as nursing assistants. Is this the right approach, or should we be taking an approach where we bring people in and get them trained up to speed so that we can maintain high levels, high standards for our residents?
Thank you for the question, Supervisor Lenz. I'll call on the administrator in the back, Marlia Keeler, to answer that question. We anticipated a question similar to this, so please, go ahead.
Sure. So to answer your first question, are there duties that the hospitality aides would not be able to do? Yes. So these would be an uncertified position, so they are not able to do any care-related tasks. The purpose of this position is to help the certified nursing assistants with the non-care related duties in the building that they're responsible for, because they are responsible for a lot of those. Laundry, meal service and cleanup, stocking supplies, monitoring resident safety. That takes up a lot of time that they're not able to then spend actually caring for the residents. So the purpose of the hospitality aide position is to alleviate some of that time so they can still spend that with the residents, because there is such a shortage of CNAs throughout the state. They're just not there to, like you said, train and bring into that position. So thinking outside the box, if we can't hire the CNAs, we want to hire people to help them, so maybe we can provide some alleviation as far as their continued overtime and just burnout that way. So that's the purpose of that position.
Thank you for that clarification, and thank you, Supervisor Lenz. Next speaker is Supervisor Snyder, followed by Supervisor Powers.
So, thank you. What you're telling me seems, I'm old enough to remember when hospitals got rid of all the LPNs, and now they're trying to get them back. This is not the same kind of a circumstance, is that correct?
Correct, no. Okay. No.
Thank you, Supervisor Snyder. Next speaker is Supervisor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're reducing by 16 full-time CNAs, are these 16 people who are losing jobs, or they're currently not even filled?
The latter. They're currently unfilled, so we would be then taking the unfilled positions, converting those into hospitality aides, and then filling those.
Okay, but we're not getting rid of any CNAs?
That's correct.
All right.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. Seeing no other call-ins, we'll go to a vote. We'll go ahead and do a voice vote on this. All those in favor of resolution number 197-082019, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on down to the final resolution this evening, resolution number 198-082019. Approve a 2-year contract for prescription benefit management services with National Cooperative RX. I will call on Supervisor Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for resolution number 198-08-2019.
There's a motion and a second to approve resolution number 198-082019. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, before we go to a motion to adjourn, please remember there is cake in the back from Supervisor Robo. I certainly encourage you to partake of it. He also has a card back there, remember. Certainly encourage all of you to sign it as well. And I'll then call on a motion to adjourn from Supervisor Albrecht.
I move we adjourn until September 3rd, special orders meeting.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.